Okay, so I'll get started. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start by telling a story, and then if we have some extra time, I will give an exercise that will be very practical that you can use towards to take home with you. Okay? So I was born, so 37 years ago, I was born on a full moon in the northern hemisphere, the Cancer Sun and Capricorn moon. And I grew up in a tiny old house with 5 siblings in a 3-bedroom house. So it was very, very tight, very restricted, and in that household, well, let's start by talking about my parents. So my father, he came from a very Catholic background, very strong Catholic background. And he was a French Canadian. I'm sure that the origins come from somewhere in Europe, I'm sure. But he was very, very, he would hold things in and then blow up. And so my father physically abused me. I remember those times where from the age of maybe 3 to on, so I finally could defend myself, I actually had a chance where I could, that was put to an end. And on my mother's side, the lineage from my mother's side, the origins are from Poland. And so the lineage there, was Poland, which is now Ukraine, and, the government that was run by Russia at the time. So you can imagine, the genocide, the war, the famine, the poverty, all the things, all that being passed down to the lineage. And so my mother, when she was growing up, well, what happened was when my grandfathers moved to, they immigrated to Canada, they got land, and they decided to forget about the language, forget about the culture, forget about the pain and the suffering and the trauma, because it was just too much. So what they did is someone in the family decided to say, okay, let's start new and bring in a new religion. And so Jehovah's Witness was that religion that became part of what was their following. And so growing up in this household, I remember seeing this dichotomy, this oppositional pull, this complete okay, so my father's saying this is right, my mother's saying this is wrong, they're fighting, they're arguing, there's all this hate and anger and pain in this household. How can I believe that any of this is good? And it was from those formative years, it was such a wonder. And so since that time, I've always been someone who was interested in who are we, what are we doing here, what's our purpose, right? And just to get more finding ourselves into philosophy and religion and spirituality. So knowing my father's side, my mother's side, the space in my home. One of the things that I found in that space was getting out. Thankfully I was in a space where there was beautiful nature and a garden. And that was the only way. I remember I was 3, 4, I would get lost somewhere and I would just commune with nature. And that was the only thing that I could do to actually get away and escape from the trauma and the stuff that was happening in my home. I never felt safe in my home. In fact, I found that I started to trust people externally than my actual home. And the other area of my life where I found that found a way to heal myself or to heal was through dance and movement. So I'd go off into the trees and I'd tumble around and roll around and spin and flow. And it was a way I could just shake it off and let it all go. And so, of course, leading up as pushing time forward, I brought all that negativity to school. And so in elementary school, I remember there was a time where I was in school and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't even talk. I was terrified, I was terribly shy. I could not even believe, and I was so sheltered in my home before, not exposed to many things. And so getting into school, of course, I ended up getting into fights. I started getting into attracting the wrong things. I found myself getting into looking for love in wrong places and attracting all these further abusive relationships. And I remember this one time where I was at school and I said, you know what, that's it. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just wait till my classmates graduate, so that way I can just graduate later, and then that way I can graduate in peace. Like, how sad is that? So I'd be at home, and there was so much anger and fighting, and no lack of love. And I go to school, and the same thing. I had no way out, I had no escape, and no way to find peace and love. I remember one day having a weapon in my locker because that's how terrified I was. I remember one day walking home, and even as a child, I'll just mention, there was times where I would vomit every weekend for weeks because I couldn't bear the feelings that were in my body. I wasn't sure how to even express them to get this out. And one day I was walking home in so much fear that I remember coming home to my place, and it literally felt like my soul was leaving my body. I remember holding on to things like, oh my God, like I need to get back down here. And I ate some food and I listened to music, and I finally just felt like a little bit better. And I was like, what was that? And another time I went home, because of all the trauma that I had in the lineage on my mother's side, she also wasn't very well because of her history and her life at home as well. She had 13, I have 13 aunts and uncles on my mom's side, and their family was a similar thing, small, tiny home, on a farm, everyone was working hard, everyone there was a lot of love and respect in that home. So one day I was coming home from school, and I came and opened up I came through the door, and I saw my older sister in fetal position, rocking underneath the table while my mom was in the household, drinking tea, talking to herself. And at that point, I was just like, oh my God, I gotta get out of this madhouse. Like, I literally have to get out of here. I can't do this anymore. And then with my Mars and Capricorn energy, thank God, blessed with that, I said, that's it, I can't do this. And so I took a course in business admin, and luckily, that course had an incentive that if I took the high school credits, I could just do the tuition for free. And at the time, that was very useful for me, so I went ahead with that. And then I thought to myself, well, I have to get away from this. I need to go to university, and I need to do well and get away from these crazy people and be a success. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll get a work placement there. So I got a work placement there, and that led to then a maternity leave placement. And then it led to a permanent job at University of Manitoba in the Department of Human Anatomy and Cell Science, where there was a morgue in the basement. And I then, at that point in my life, got myself my own place, had my own car, was finding a relationship, and then I remember there was a time also I just want to mention where there's a morgue in the basement, so being someone very sensitive and very acute and aware and my sensitive are quite heightened, that I always remembered I could sense things in that space. And sometimes I go to the morgue down in the basement to grab paperwork or talk to people, communicate and interact. And seeing the cadavers, I just remember feeling a sense of like every individual cadaver had sort of a story or something. And then I came upstairs and I was like, I better not tell anyone this because people are going to think I'm crazy like the rest of my family. And so I just kept suppressing it, ignoring it. And so then within a few years, my partner asked me to build a house with him. And as I mentioned before, I was very much into finding the dance. The dance for me was something where I could just let go, be in the moment, and free myself from all the suffering and the pain. And so I had saved up an amount of money to go to Martha Graham School in New York City, and my previous partner was telling me, no, would you like to build a house together? And I remember driving up to the bank, and I was sitting there, and I was just like, oh my God, no! And my body was saying, no, don't do this, but and so I said to him, I said, Dad, like, I can't do this, I'm not doing this, I have all this money I saved up to go dance and dream, this is my dream, why would I do this instead? And of course, he gets out of the car, and he says, fuck it then, we're not gonna do this, forget it, blah, blah, blah. And of course, me, being someone who came from a broken home, was like, oh, but maybe it could be this beautiful home I could have, and all that good stuff. And so, of course, no, let's do it. Hey, never mind, forget what I said. And so we went to the bank, did things, and this house was wonderful. We built a 1,552 square foot bungalow with attached garage, cathedral ceilings, hardwood solid floors, cedar shake roofing. Yeah, beautiful, like I'm talking like top of the line, like granite countertops and touch stainless steel on and off faucets. So it's such a gorgeous house. And the best bit of it was we bring people together, we invite people, and we have communities and gatherings of 100 people, have fires and dancing inside, so it was really magical. But there was one day where I was sitting on the couch and I was looking out the window, and I was just like, oh my God, like, I have the house now, I got the car, I've got the partner, what's next? Have babies? And I was like, fuck that, no, I can't. And I was looking out the window and just thinking to myself, like, I thought this is what I wanted. I thought this is what everyone wants. Why, how could this not be? Like, why am I not fulfilled? Why am I not satisfied? Why am I not happy? And so I brought it to my partner's attention. I said to him, like, this is it, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I even told my boss I can't do this anymore. He said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to do yoga and kinesiology. I don't know, that just came to me. And so of course, as a Taurus sun, he dug his heels in and wouldn't budge, wouldn't allow it to happen. And another year going on, this resistance was happening within me and him, until then my mom got really sick, and yeah, she passed away. And so that was it for me. I was like, wow, life is just too short. I cannot do this. I'm making this happen. And so thankfully, God bless, he found someone. And that was the thing, that the catalyst that made change. So I said, okay, I'll do the whole comp-free, I'll sell it myself. I'll take the photos of the house, we'll do it ourselves. You invite the people and you show the house around. That's what we decided. So that was done. And we sold the house, thank God. I felt free of that one thing finally. And then the next, I found a space that was close to my neighborhood, along the same river, and it was a canoe that was attached to it, so I could go on this little stream and back and forth. And I took that year to really think about what it is that I really wanted, because I didn't want this and what was before, and what was I going to do next? So I needed a plan. So I had this moment also when I was in the house, I remember, where I was just yearning for something different. I knew that I could not continue with what I was doing. I had this feeling that I never felt before, which was like this feeling like I needed to be somewhere else, that I couldn't, there was something in my heart. I wouldn't say soul calling, but it just feels quite, it was something, just something that was pulling me. And so I said, okay, well, I'll go to Australia because the culture is similar, the language is similar, it'll make sense. That's where I feel like going, so I'm gonna go do that. So I got a working holiday visa at the time, And I essentially worked it all out. I sold my car, I made things go smooth, everything was just working itself out until finally the last thing was my job. Because of the security, that safety, the financial security that I had, I wanted to, I was terrified of making this big change. But I knew in my heart it was not what I wanted, it was not fulfilling, it wasn't satisfying. So I told my boss if I could have a leave, I asked him if I could have a leave of absence, and he declined it. So what I did was I took a 4-week vacation to Australia. And within the 3 weeks, I landed on the ground, and I remember just feeling like, okay, this is it. I had a rose from my mom's funeral, and I went to the ocean on the first day that I landed and let that flag swim off. And 3 weeks into my vacation, I wrote in the email saying that I was resigning. So I completely detached from all the material, the house, the car, the job, the boyfriend, and I just felt free. Like I wanted to feel, what does it feel like to not be in a rat race anymore? Go to work, drive, come back, drive, eat, go to sleep, repeat. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't. So, so I was in Australia, I took a yoga teacher training program with Yoga Synergy, and I started to teach 10 hours a week in Sydney, and then through that phase, I ended up meeting my twin flame. Because often what happens is when you start to work towards your path and live more in alignment, you then start to, everything works out like a beautiful puzzle, and you start to meet people that help align you. And so with my journey was, I met my twin flame, and then he was taking me, I was assisting him in workshops and going to all these retreats. And I remember we were traveling for 6 months long. We went to different countries like India, and Indonesia, and Thailand, Israel, and USA, and many different places. And I just remember this one time in Israel where I was standing on this stage in the Arava desert of Israel, and there was caves behind me, and this blue, beautiful sky, with this crescent little moon, and the sun just came down, and it was very, like nice and nice, air breezy kind of night, very nice and cool, and 1,000 people in the audience, all in white, and everyone's arms are waving like this, and the dancing and the yoga, and I just remember saying to myself, like, oh my God, this moment, I'm just going to absorb all of this, because it just feels so good, having such gratitude and appreciation for the moment, this moment. I still remember it to this day. And I remember saying to myself, if I die tomorrow, that's it, I've done it, I've lived it. This is just, wow, this experience. Being in Israel too, especially such a powerful place on the earth. So shortly after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to start going to a new direction. I was with my twin flame, and we were sort of wondering what was next, what was I going to do, and I had a few ideas. Maybe I'd go to New Zealand, maybe I'd go to Egypt. I've been drawn to Egypt. But then he said to me, well, why don't you just come to Australia and just chill out and like plan your time and just figure it out and see what you want to do, take some time to yourself. So I thought, well, and quite honestly, I had a lot of fear about like going back out into the world again by myself, and who knows, and so I said, okay, let's just do it. So came to Australia, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to get back into that rat race? I really want to do what I'm passionate about, what I love. And I remember saying to myself, I just want the fucking world to stop so I can catch up. And then 7 days later, March 7th-ish, COVID hit. And the whole world was in lockdown. You did it. Sorry. But honestly, like, there was a part of me that was like, what? But there's parts of me that was like, yes. Because I was, as a child, like, I wanted to read books, I wanted to play, I wanted to sit with myself and do things. I had so much responsibility at such a young age that it was like, now I got to just stop. Like, I remember people used to tell me, like, just keep doing things, like, just stop, chill out, sit on the chair and just stop. It was like, I was like, completely, my nervous system and everything was like, gotta do. And so this really taught me to just really slow down and stop. I was playing about 3-4 hours on the piano, learning Mozart and Beethoven, probably 3-4 hours a day on a week, 3-4 hours a day on the piano. And I was reading all sorts of esoteric books and philosophy of spirituality and many different things, and health and the body as well. I really got to actually just stop and slow down and tear away all these attachments that aren't mine, and to just be me, just to be a human, and do the things that we love and that I love and that I want to experience, and to just slow that right down. So for me, it was such a blessing in that. And so that's when I found kinesiology. So I started to take kinesiology, and of course that yangness in me, like probably still is in me, but I was doing flips on the trampoline, and having a good time, wanting to keep that propelling, pushing forward into activity, until I dislocated my right knee. So the MRI said that I had dislocated the ACL. Is a grade 3, which is a complete tear, and I ruptured other things, and everything's a mess. So thank God I was in a space where my twin flame looked after me for literally 6 months. I was in a knee brace in a wheelchair rolling around. But I thought to myself, well, look, I'm safe, I'm good. Why don't I take this work of kinesiology and try to use my body as an experiment? So, okay, let's do it. So I've got nothing else better to do now. I'm stuck here. So I started to learn all the different techniques, and I was using physiotherapy and acupressure still and all the things, but I used muscle testing to find exactly what I needed to heal my knee, to actually regrow my ligament back, or at least believe in it. And so I used nutrition, I found crystals, I used meditations, and I ended up having a profound experience in seeing this angel come down and literally put their hand on my knee and say, okay, you learned your lesson, so let's do this. And if any of you see me now, this was about 2.5 years ago, if any of you see me now dance, I don't think you could tell that I had done that. And they typically say, I was told that I need surgery if I ever wanted to do any kind of extreme sports. And so I'll just go back to all of this here. So the phases. So back to the title here, practical methods of ways to live a spiritual or practical ways of applying metaphysical and spiritual ways in your life, right? So as a child, I had all this shame and all this embarrassment of my family, and I don't know, I felt that way, but instead of that, I found self-acceptance and so much compassion and so much reverence for my soul for incarnating at this time to be in this life, to go through these challenges and to get out of them and become who I am today. And as a teenager, this idea of putting other people first, or other people matter first, well, actually, we matter first. When we are living our true destiny and passion and love, and when we actually look after ourselves and when we love ourselves, it's not selfish. It's when we're looking after what we want and desire, it's then going to ripple out to the universe, and it's actually going to serve everyone else. So we have this idea sometimes we need to serve other people, but we are when we're serving ourselves. So it's just changing the way that we're thinking about living. And as an adult, the whole idea of the things I wanted, so that was just my ego. That was the conditions that I had to undo and let go of. That was the ego wanting all these things that thought they ought to give me value and to be something, but no. It's just, it doesn't. It's about just being, about finding peace and love within yourself. exercise, if we still have some time, we do and also that time, like when I was feeling in my heart that I had to go, and you could see the more restriction that I put on, other things kept happening. I was digging myself into deeper, bigger holes. So maybe we don't need a catalyst for change. Maybe we can actually feel and listen to our bodies, because it's really telling us so much. Our bodies tell us everything. If we feel, oh, this doesn't feel right, then listen to it. Don't ignore it. Really listen to it, because our intuition is guiding us. Everyone, all of you, are all magnificent, beautiful beings who have got something unique and special about all of you that that will offer and just be. And so when we look inside and find that inner guidance and the truth of who we are, and our truth, because our truth is our own truth. So you've got to follow just your truth with where you're at with every moment. And so that intuition is really important. And now I'm about to step into a new business, so I'm going to be starting a new business as a kinesiologist, yoga teacher, but I also want to collaborate and work with people. And I have dreams of living in a different world, a lot of different ideas that I have with what I think will work, because I've now experienced what it's like to live in shit, and then I have experience to live in luxury, and I got to experience just like the sun and moon in Cancer and Capricorn in this fine exact balance where I was born, exactly 0 degrees, conjunct those two, and could find the feeling or understanding of where's the balance between this or that, and integrating that. So I think what I'll do is I will use the next bit to do a little exercise. I'm just going to take a moment to do this. So what I'll do is we're going to have here our physical goals. And our spiritual goals. Yeah, and then what we'll do is we're going to have here, so this will be, let's say, this will be personal, and then this is business, and the final one will be social. Okay, so you guys give me an example on this side. So what is a physical goal that you would want? Anyone can shoot it out. Health? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Triathlon. Okay, so let's start with health first. And did you say tree of life?
Triathlon.
Say that again?
Triathlon.
Triathlon, awesome. Is that how you spell it?